All right, today we're going to tackle a really fascinating puzzle. It's all about numbers. It's a story about people, places, and priorities. Some people have called it the great imbalance. So to get it started, I want to throw one really big number at you.
2.35 billion. Just let that sink in for a second. To put that in perspective, that's more people than live in North and South America combined. We're talking about a massive group of people spread all over the world.
So, what's the deal with them? What could all 2.35 billion of these people possibly have in common? Well, you know what? That is the central question we're going to unpack right now.
Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to break this down into 4 key parts. First, we'll look at how the world is divided. Then, we'll get into the workforce gap. After that, you guessed it, we're going to follow the money. And to wrap it all up, we'll look at 3 strategic shifts that could actually address this whole thing.
All right, first up, a world divided. We're talking about the entire planet here, all 8.1 billion of us. And it turns out you can basically categorize everyone into 3 distinct groups. And it all boils down to just one single factor: their access to the Christian message.
And this chart really lays it all out. So you've got about a third of the world considered reached. Another 38% are evangelized. And that last slice, that's our number. That's the 29%, the 2.35 billion people who are classified as unreached. See, it all connects back.
So what do these words even mean, right? Let's break it down. Reached basically means people who identify as Christian. Evangelized, those are folks who have access to the message. They could hear it if they wanted to, but they haven't adopted it. But the one we really need to focus on is unreached. This is the key. It's not just that they aren't Christian, it means they have zero access. Like no Bibles, no churches, no believers anywhere near them. It's a total information vacuum.
Okay, so we've got the who down, but what about the where? Where in the world are we talking about? Because the geography here is every bit as important as the numbers themselves.
It turns out the huge majority of them live in a part of the world called the 1040 window. It's basically this band that stretches all the way across North Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. When we talk about this imbalance, this is the geographical heart of the whole issue.
So that leads us right into our next section. How does this huge population imbalance translate into an imbalance of people, of personnel? Let's talk about the workforce gap. The question is simple. Where are the missionaries actually going? Well, for starters, the number of people who even choose this path is tiny. I mean, incredibly small. The data shows that for every 1,800 Christians, only one, just one, becomes a cross-cultural missionary. But believe it or not, the story gets even more focused than that.
And this chart, wow, this just nails the core of the problem. So of that already tiny group of missionaries, get this, 97% of them are working in the reached and evangelized parts of the world. That leaves a tiny 3% of the entire missionary workforce, focused on that 29% of the population that we called unreached. The math just doesn't add up. And we can zoom in even further. There's this term that adds a whole other layer of urgency: UUPGs. It stands for unengaged, unreached people groups. Think about that. These are communities where there is literally no one, no team, no effort, no plan at all to reach them. So they're not just unreached, they're completely, totally unengaged. So we've seen the imbalance when it comes to people. But what about the resources? I mean, a workforce gap is one thing, but what happens when we start to follow the money? And I gotta tell you, this might be the most shocking part of this whole story. First off, the total amount of money we're talking about is just immense. Annual Christian giving is estimated to be around $850 billion. So right away, you know the resources are there. This isn't a problem of not having enough money. Okay, so out of that massive total, about $45 billion is specifically set aside for foreign missions. Yeah, it's just a fraction of the whole pot, but let's be real, $45 billion is still a huge, huge amount of money. And this brings us to the million-dollar question, or I guess the $45 billion question. With all that money on the table for foreign missions, how is it actually being spent? Where does it all go? The answer is right here, and it's pretty staggering. A whopping 87% of that money goes to work that's happening in already Christian parts of the world. Another 12% goes to those evangelized lands. And that tiny little sliver, just 1%, is all that's directed toward the unreached world. 1% for those 2.35 billion people with zero access. Okay,
So, we've seen the imbalance of people, places, and money. The numbers are just stark. There's no other word for it. But the story doesn't have to end there. Let's pivot now. Let's talk solutions. Let's look at 3 strategic shifts that people are proposing to tackle this exact challenge.
So number 1 is strategic giving. This is all about encouraging people to specifically earmark their funds for work among the unreached. Number 2, diaspora missions, which is a really clever way of leveraging global migration. And number 3 is mobilization. That's really just about educating more people that this massive gap even exists in the first place. Let's zoom in on that second one for a second. Diaspora missions. Because of wars, economic changes, all sorts of things, people from unreached nations are moving all over the globe. So this strategy is all about engaging with those immigrant and refugee communities right where they land. It's basically about reaching the foreign field right here on the local field.
And in the end, it really all boils down to this one powerful idea. This quote just sums up the entire challenge perfectly. If we truly believe the Great Commission is a command and not a suggestion, we cannot be satisfied with 1% of our money and 3% of our people going to 29% of the world. It shows that if the goal is truly global, well, the current way we're allocating people and money just doesn't line up. And that leaves us with a pretty provocative thought, doesn't it? What will it actually take to balance the scales?